Hello and welcome to another episode of Character History, and on this episode we take a look at one of the originals. Oh yes, we take a look at one of DC's most loved and popular comic book heroes. This week we look at the history of Barbara Gordon. Like Stephanie Brown, we will look at her original entrance and adventures first, and then we will look at her New 52 reboot, as yes, there are a lot of differences between the two origins. I myself prefer her old continuity, but I have grown to like her new origin thanks to the excellent writing of Gail Simone, who unfortunately is no longer in the book, but she has left her impressive mark on it. Barbara Gordon first appeared way back in 1967 and came about because of the hit Batman show. See, the producers wanted to introduce a female character into the superhero team as people got a little bit bored with just Robin, and so Batgirl was created. And such a great reception, the character played by Yvonne Craig, people were eager to see more. So, her first comic appearance was in Detective Comics number 359, dubbed the $1 Million Debut of Batgirl. While on her way to a costume party hosted by the billionaire Bruce Wayne, Barbara had dressed up in a Batman outfit. So while at the party, she stumbled upon a kidnapping attempt by the Batman villain Killer Moth, who was trying to kidnap Bruce Wayne. Without hesitation, she jumped in and stopped the kidnapping. She eventually caught Killer Moth, saving Batman and Robin and earning the highest respect of both the crime fighters. So, during the day, she would work her job as a librarian, but as night, she would don the cape and patrol the streets as Batgirl. During the Silver Age, she would team up with Superman, Supergirl, and even help the Justice League of America. Batman would then tell her adopted father, Commissioner Gordon, that it was Barbara under the mask, but turns out he'd known all along. As he'd kindly said to Batman, he is a police detective after all. Now let me stop you all there. You're probably thinking why I said adoptive father rather than actual father. Well, because back in the old comics, yes, he was her adoptive father. He was actually her uncle, who sadly her parents died, so he took over the responsibility. But of course they've retconned that now, but still, back then it was important. However, this was towards the end of the Silver Age, and before we enter the next stage, a lot of people in the DC universe would change, Barbara included. She had wanted to give up being Batgirl, but came out now and again to help Robin out. She had also helped the first Batwoman, Kathy Kane, capture a few criminals. Also, this was when the Crisis of Infinite Earths event occurred, when Supergirl was one of the many unfortunate tragedies. As her close friend, Barbara read the eulogy at her funeral, and this is when we entered the modern age of comics, when Barbara would change in a hell of a lot of ways. Now, for starters, they updated her origins slightly from the timid librarian who decided to turn a crime fighter. So when she was younger, she became a martial arts prodigy and was a star athlete, and she had worked hard in school and was very clever. She shot through school incredibly quick, skipping grades in the process. She wanted to pursue a career in the police, but she did carry on with being Batgirl. However, she did feel slightly inadequate in a world with heroes like Superman, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman when she was barely making a dent in Gotham's crime. But then in the 1988 Batman event, The Killing Joke, writer Alan Moore made one of the most controversial decisions that is still spoken about today. It was during the event that the Joker had escaped from Arkham yet again, but this time it wasn't as cut and dry as usual. The event shined some backstory on the Clown Prince, and he also humanized him slightly. But in the current day, he wanted to prove that anyone can go mad if they had one bad day. And so, one fateful evening, while Commissioner Gordon was visiting his daughter, the doorbell rang, and when she answered the door, the Joker was there, and he shot her point blank in the gut. The bullet went through her and hit her spine, but while she lay on the floor bleeding, Joker stripped her naked and took pictures of her to use as ammunition against her father and Batman. She would be paralysed for the rest of her life, and when Nightwing found out, he was absolutely devastated, as he and Barbara had been very close during the early years of them working together. Because of this event, Barbara would become slightly obsessed with making the Joker pay for what he did to her. She'd asked Nightwing on a few occasions to omit the rule of no killing for just one night, but eventually she was talked out of it, but it constantly kept on happening. However, Barbara asked Bruce for the camera that Joker had used for her that fateful night, which he gave her with no questions asked. She still had the camera locked up in a safe house where her uniform lay on display, as kind of a memento to remind her who she was. Although this was not the end of Barbara's career with the Bat family, oh no. After falling into a bout of depression, she realised that she still did have skills to offer. With her incredible technology skills, along with her photographic memory, and the knowledge of the superhero community, she created herself an alias as an information broker of sorts, working with the heroes, getting them the necessary information they needed to do their jobs to the best of their ability. Nobody outside of the Bat family knew about the broker's real identity, and she received a new codename, Oracle. She gathered information for the government's Task Force X team, or the Suicide Squad, and even traded more martial arts while sat in a wheelchair to show that she could still kick butt using her batons. She was vital in clearing Bruce's name when he was framed for murdering his girlfriend during the No Man's Land arc. She helped with all the members of the Bat family and was even inducted into the Justice League. However, this would not be the biggest event of Oracle's tenure. Oracle would go on to found the Birds of Prey, a smash hit team consisting of only female heroes, but that rule would change once or twice during the team's history. Originally, the team only consisted of two heroes, Oracle and Black Canary. Oracle hired her as an agent after Power Girl didn't really work out. The two started off on shaky ground, but once Barbara revealed her true identity, the two would become lifelong friends. And when Canary got herself trapped one time, Oracle had to call upon Huntress to work for her and to rescue Canary, and the Trip would form the first team. The team would grow over time with new members coming in such as Hawk and Dove, Big Barda, Manhunter, and the ever-joyous Misfit. Now around this time, Barbara would come across a young girl who was gifted in the ways of martial arts. This girl was of course Cassandra Cain. If you'd like to learn more about Cassandra Cain's history, you can always check out my character history, but here's a little quick synopsis right now. She was basically trained by David Cain, Lady Shiva, and all of those, basically become the new bodyguard for Ra's al Ghul in the future. Now, Cassie saved Commissioner Gordon's life from an assassination attempt by her dad. With the approval of both Batman and Oracle, Cassie became the new Batgirl, with Cassie becoming Barbara's ward for both hero work and to help Cassie gain the normal human skills that her father had stopped her from learning. Cassie and Barbara were a great team and worked together to solve a number of cases, including when a villain named the General would reanimate corpses and use them for his own nefarious goals. At the same time, Barbara and Dick began working closely together again, and eventually they would rekindle their relationship. They had got together a number of times, but it was after No Man's Land that they were really close. However, she also found out that Huntress and Dick had had a relationship as well, and she wasn't too happy. Now, you can assume that Barbara had her hands full with all of the Birds of Prey as the team began to grow, as well as getting information from many heroes from across the DC universe. Now, you can assume that Barbara had her hands full with all of the Birds of Prey as the team began to grow, as well as getting information from many heroes from across the DC universe. It got a little too close for comfort during the Batman event Gang Wars. Stephanie Brown felt horrible after Batman had fired her as Robin and Spoiler, so basically she decided to try and prove herself as a hero by stealing Batman's contingency plans for if something were to go wrong. However, on a mission one time, Black Mask basically got the jump on her, and he took the plans and basically caused hell across all of Gotham. After killing the head crime boss and gaining Batman's plans, Black Mask arrived with Scarecrow and his gang at Oracle's tower, to which he believed was the Batcave. After sacrificing Scarecrow and his gang to Oracle's traps, he arrives and confronts Oracle and takes her captive. He challenges Batman to a televised duel to the death, this being right after Stephanie Brown supposedly died from Black Mask's torture, so you would assume that Batman would probably kill him. Batman arrived, and for a while it looked like Black Mask was gaining the upper hand, until Batman toppled him and started absolutely thrashing him. Barbara pleaded with him to stop, but he really just wouldn't, so she did the only thing that she could. She set the base to self-destruct and gave him an ultimatum: save her or kill Black Mask and everyone together. He obviously saved her, but the relationship between the two changed after that day. Still good friends, just a little wary of what the other might do. After the crisis, Dick finally asked Barbara to marry him, to which she placed on hold while Dick travelled with Batman and Robin. 1 year later was a move that DC used to progress certain heroes to a new stage of characterization. For Barbara, it didn't really change that much. Barbara began working with Batman again, but on a limited basis. Black Canary had left the Birds of Prey, with Huntress being the new field commander, and she even invited Power Girl back to try and repair their friendship, but that didn't really work. And eventually brings new heroes into the mist, including Misfit. Cassie also saved Barbara from an assassination attempt by her dad, and coordinated the strikes on reclaiming villains who had escaped from Central City after the Flash's death. So, Cassie and Barbara had great respect for each other, and even on times fell out. They were just very close friends, and they knew exactly what each other were going through. Also, she encountered her first run-in with her arch-villains, Calculator. He was a cyber terrorist, and he had launched a cyber attack onto her mainframe and almost found out the identities of every superhero that Oracle had worked with. This time, however, Oracle was the victor. And then came Final Crisis, the event that at the end of it, Batman supposedly died. As a way of dealing with the death of Batman, she disbanded the Birds of Prey. So with Batman gone, a new Batman had to take his place. But Barbara stayed out of the way on this one. She sent the Birds of Prey to go and help Nightwing and Robin, but she was basically left for cleanup. She didn't really want to get involved. But she had to stop Calculator from using the anti-life equation to heal his sick daughter. Now, this is a respectable goal, but his means were awful, murdering anybody who got too close to him and to his daughter. Now, she managed to stop Calculator, track him down, and got him sent to jail, but she also managed to save his sick daughter. But Wendy wanted nothing to do with her father anymore, leading Calculator to swear vengeance against Oracle. So it was around this time that Cassandra Cain left the mantle of Batgirl, And as soon as Dick informs Barbara that he's seen a new Batgirl running around and it obviously isn't Cassandra, she knows exactly who it is and calls out Stephanie Brown. At first, she states that she shouldn't be Batgirl, as she basically had virtually died the last time she tried to put on a cape, but when Scarecrow attacked, Barbara had no choice but to send Stephanie into the field as Batgirl. Coaching her through it, she did start to actually like Stephanie, and as a reward gave her a new Batgirl costume with a lot of tech upgrades, far superior to Cassandra's costume, but of course, Cassandra wasn't really a tech expert, she was more of a martial arts one. However, when Dick finds out that Stephanie's still continuing as Batgirl, he reacts kind of angrily to Barbara. They have a massive argument, to which Barbara rightfully calls him out on some of the stuff he says to her about his family and them together. Eventually, Dick concedes and even gets to like Stephanie in her role as Batgirl. So, while Stephanie is being Batgirl, Barbara decides to take up a professor role at Gotham University to keep an eye on Stephanie during the day, but to also help Wendy Harris, the recovered daughter of Calculator. Now, Wendy was a bit of a tech nerd, and she was also in a wheelchair, and so Barbara could relate to her. And when Barbara was captured by Calculator, Wendy helped Stephanie find Calculator's lair and save Barbara. So whenever Oracle was away, Proxy would now help Batgirl. Oracle got the original Birds of Prey back together, including some new recruits, as she felt that they needed to come back. They decided to return to Gotham, and Oracle takes control of the intelligence grid once again. During this period, the Birds of Prey came under attack by a villainous group who wanted to shut them down for good and take Oracle out of the equation. So who did they hire but the one man that changed Barbara's life forever? The Joker. Now, Joker tracked the signal to where Oracle was supposed to be, but Barbara just played the role of a house owner who was just in a wheelchair. But it was only until he was in a traffic jam that he put two and two together, as he thought she looked familiar. He went back to find her, thinking that she would be terrified of him, but she was actually ready to face him, ready to kick his ass, insulting him, and even smashed her baton against his face so hard it smashed his teeth. Misfit showed up and got Barbara out of there. Then Bruce Wayne returned from his disappearance act, which I have covered in great detail in other videos, but I'll state quickly what happened. Well, turns out Bruce wasn't dead after the battle against Darkseid, but he had been sent tumbling through time and he was now back in the present day after a few years. But he came back with a new idea for a global Batman team, Batman Incorporated, and for that he would need the help of Oracle. Now, he showed her plans for the Internet 3.0, which he wants her to be the ghost in the machine, but also a set of plans that showed her in a bat suit next to a strange vehicle. Methinks. She asks about it, but he remains coy and says nothing, but she does have an idea about it. When she goes to see Bruce, he reiterates how much he needs Oracle, but she cuts him off after stating that Oracle was going to die that very evening. At this time, Calculator had returned and had assembled a team to take down Oracle once and for all and the Birds of Prey. When a group of villains arrive at a strip club that very night the Birds of Prey are visiting for someone's stag do, they do not find Oracle, but they do find the Birds of Prey. Dove, one of them, is absolutely hammered. That just left Huntress, Canary, and Lady Blackhawk to fend for themselves, after Dove basically says that she's Oracle, and is basically tortured by this villain who can make people feel their worst fear. They are all captured, and Oracle states that she'll be coming to get them out. Now, what Barbara had meant was that she had gotten too noisy, and had become too well known among both the villain and the hero community, and wanted to die down, but when she heard about the plan of Calculators, she kind of wanted to improve the scheme. When they arrived at the drop-off location, a helicopter was coming in, supposedly with Oracle inside, and basically what did Calculator do? He blows up the helicopter. Barbara had asked Hawk, who had a great healing factor and was also a little invulnerable, to pilot the attack chopper to which she would speak from. If they did blow it up, Hawk would survive the crash and there wouldn't be a problem, but everyone perceived that Barbara was dead. Calculator did just that, and it sent some of the birds into overdrive, and they kicked the villains' asses hard. That very next day, although Barbara is alive, Oracle is in fact dead. She states to the Bat family that anyone outside the Birds of Prey will no longer get help, but for those select few, and for some of the birds, that big sister would be watching out for them. Now we get on to the New 52, where Barbara didn't actually change that much. Her origin was that when she once went on a visit to the police station, she and her brother were almost taken hostage by a criminal. She fought off the criminal as best she could for a young girl before Batman arrived and stopped him, praising her for her skills. She became Batgirl when she was older, and although at first it annoyed Batman, he eventually grew to trust her as a dear friend. Of course, one thing stayed the same. She was indeed shot by the Joker, and she was in a wheelchair for only a few years. Due to an experimental surgery, she was able to walk again. But I emphasise the word experimental. She has warned that if she puts herself under too much pressure, the treatment may undo itself, and she is aware of this. She is the current Batgirl and will remain to be for the foreseeable future. Now, within the New 52, while under the writing of Gail Simone, Batgirl had become one of DC's best-selling titles, as Simone was a master of the character and she had written Barbara for so many years on Birds of Prey. Nowadays it's written by a different team, but we'll get to them in a second. So within the New 52, Barbara has to face some real tough opponents, as well as some tough issues also. During the first arc, she froze when a villain named Mirror reminded her so much of what the Joker had done to her. In doing so, an innocent man lost his life. She got past this stage fright and beat Mirror, who was also going around killing certain individuals who had escaped death but had committed crimes, sort of trying to be an anti-hero but doing it in the worst way. Then came along the Batman event, Night of the Owls. Barbara was attacked by a female Talon assassin. Basically, the Owls were a crime family who was supposedly in charge of the city, and when things got out of hand, they sent out Talons, which were assassins. A sort of undead assassin who are from all across the ages, and they're not exactly to be trifled with. Now, in their first meeting, Barbara was beaten badly, but left alive by the assassin. The second time, Barbara was ready and threw off a building, so when she asked the assassin why she left her alive, she responded by writing in her blood on the floor that because she too wore a mask, they were alike and she wanted to understand. The Talon would later go on to be called Strix, and the pair would work together on a case involving kidnappings and vampires. Yes, I said vampires, this is comics we're talking about. The major villain of Batgirl's opening arc was not someone that we've seen before, but someone called Nightfall. Her real name was Charisse Cars, and she and her brother were one of the part of the wealthiest families in Gotham City. However, her dad was in many dirty deals, illegal money schemes, judges in his pocket, and she knew about it too. But she still idolised him if he was still her dad. But then she fell in love with a boy, but at first made it look like he cared for her, but then turned out to be an absolute insomniac who actually turned up at her house in the middle of the night armed with knives and forced Charisse to tie up her parents and her brother. Then he cut them to pieces while he forced her to watch. When the man left, and since there was no evidence other pointing than to Charisse was convicted of the crime and sent to Arkham Asylum at the age of 18 wrongfully. However, she wanted to be there as she had learned what made the criminal mind tick, and so she learned all that she could before leaving, as she had many people in her pockets. She could basically get out whenever she wanted. By day she would use her money to improve the law system and charities, and at night she would rid Gotham of its rogue elements. Pitted against Barbara, she was a tough opponent and even got Barbara into blows against Batwoman at one point. But eventually she was captured, but it wouldn't be long before she was back out on the streets as she had every judge in Gotham in her pocket. Before Nightfall returned, Barbara would have to deal with A, having the Joker return in Death of the Family and basically ruin her life again by almost forcing her to marry him with her own mother's cut-off ring finger. B, she would have to live weeks thinking that she had killed her stepbrother, James Gordon Jr., when in fact he faked his death, and basically she went almost rogue with her own father trying to hunt her down for murder, but eventually they managed to patch things up after learning that James was still alive. In between those points, you can kind of guess that Barbara had a pretty crappy time. So, in comes Nightfall again with a brand new plan. Towards the end of Simone's run, Nightfall came back and was set to purge Gotham of the evil it had created. In order to stop her, Barbara called in all the favours from across the DC universe that she could get her hands on, and every female hero in the DC universe came in to stop Nightfall's forces, which was pretty damn cool. But when the two came face to face, Barbara didn't actually fight her, she just spoke to her, telling her that she wasn't a killer and that deep down her parents wouldn't want this, giving her a picture of her family. Charisse breaks down into tears and the two acknowledge that the two aren't actually that dissimilar. Then Simone's final hurrah, a look into the future, Future's End, and what it held for Batgirl. In the future, 5 years on, Barbara had married the love of her life, but just as the ceremony is over, her brother appears wielding a gun, demanding that the groom prove his love by sacrificing himself for Barbara. Upon doing so, James taunts his sister and she snaps, beating him to a bloody pulp. She stopped being Batgirl and travelled the world to learn the ways of the criminal underground. So, she basically went to the Riddler, the Penguin, all the criminals, and basically learned from them, and then took them down from the inside. When she seeks training from Bane, that she actually changed as a person. Cut to Gotham, and there are 3 Batgirls, Cassandra Cain, Stephanie Brown, and Tiffany Fox, along with their leader, Bette Noir, a muscle-bulging, strong, female masked hero. But when Bane arrives in Gotham, he calls her out personally. Of course, Bette Noir is Barbara. As Bane chastises her for being not that different, Barbara is reminded of what drove her on this path in the first place, and reminding her that she does have people that cares about her still in the 3 young protégés that she has out on the city streets. She fights against falling into this dark persona and beats Bane and stated that she never actually needed the venom to become this strong. A great end to a perfect series, which I know many people will not argue, stating that this, Batgirl, was one of the best DC books to come out of the New 52. The new creative team on Batgirl
are Cameron Stewart, Brendan Fletcher, and Babs Tarr. And although they've had more than enough time to settle themselves on the issues, although they've had more than enough time to cement their place on the book,
and I'm ready for the new team to show me and blow me away with some of their writing, but as of yet, they haven't done so, offending quite a few people in the first process, but again, they've apologised, let's move on.
Issue 39 has recently come out, and their wrap-up to their first big arc has kind of revealed itself. But to be honest, I wasn't that blown away by it, and I think it's finally cemented why I can't focus on the book. It's when two separate subject matters are contrasting in the book, where it's talking about Batgirl's image on social media and how she's interacting with her friends, and then compare that with the crime fighting that's in the book, and putting them together in a 28-29 page book, it really is a bit confusing, and it doesn't always work well together. So, unfortunately, I have to say, I'm probably not going to carry on reading Batgirl. Don't think I'm condemning it. Go out and read it yourself if you really find the character interesting. I'm just saying, it's not really for me. So, there you have it. There's my 2 cents.
Some part of me hopes that one time in the future, Simone will return to take the helm of the book, but things must move in new directions.
So, that was Barbara Gordon, a.k.a. Batgirl, a.k.a. Oracle, a.k.a. Batgirl again. Leave a comment in the description, subscribe to my channel, leave a like if you could, and let me know what kind of hero you want me to talk about, or even what kind of event you'd like me to talk about, something you're not so sure about, something you'd like to get a bit more clued up on. And until then, that's all folks. Thanks for watching. Ta-ta for now.